Brilliance Audio presents In the Shadow of Power by Viveca Sten, translated by Marlene DeLargy, performed by Angela Daw. How could he possibly have missed the call from Russia? Carsten Jonsson stared at his cell phone and realized it was on silent. He must have forgotten to change it back after the meeting at the bank, and now it was too late to call back. He'd had a few drinks in a bar, and it was almost midnight, even later in Moscow. He'd have to wait until tomorrow. He went into the library and poured himself a small whiskey. He'd earned it. Everything had gone well at the bank. Things were going according to plan, and the loan would be repaid in October, as agreed. Carsten sank down into the leather armchair facing the huge picture window. It had stopped raining while he was walking home, and now the clouds had dispersed, suggesting that tomorrow might be nice. It was about time. It had rained almost every day throughout April. The apartment was silent. Celia and the children were in bed, as was the nanny. Marianne? No, Maria. He found it difficult to keep track. None of the girls stayed for long. Maria was made of sterner stuff, though. She'd made a speedy recovery from the accident in the underground parking lot. Accident. Carsten considered the word. The car had been completely destroyed, and it was pure luck that no one had been hurt. According to the insurance company, the explosion had been caused by an unusual technical fault that had made the gas tank self-ignite. No one was to blame. He ran his fingertips over the armrest. There had been considerable interest in the Russian share deal, and he'd had to play hardball in a number of other business matters. What if it hadn't been an accident? He didn't want to go back to all that hassle with United Oil, the nights when he didn't know if he could continue, the mornings when he needed to use a little something extra to get him out of bed, everything that happened afterward. But he was a different person now. He hadn't taken anything for years, although he made sure he had a supply nearby, just in case. His glass was empty. Carsten got up and refilled it. Hopefully the insurance company was right, and the incident in the parking lot had nothing to do with his business affairs. Maria seemed fine now, and she was good with Oliver and Sarah. Carsten checked from time to time to make sure she always spoke Swedish with them. It was important for the children to be comfortable in his mother tongue. They had to learn about their heritage, be able to talk to their grandmother. That was why he'd built the house on Sandhamn. At least that's what he told himself, even though he knew better. The image of his father's face came into his mind, but he pushed it away. It had taken a lot of negotiation before he'd been allowed to buy the extensive plot of land, but in the end, money had won the day, as it always did. The vendor's talk of selling to locals or turning the area into a nature reserve had died away when they saw the size of the wad of cash he was waving in front of their noses. On the day the contract was signed in the lawyer's office, he had seen the greed in their eyes. They were already thinking about what they were going to spend it on. The dark blue night was illuminated by beams of light playing across the sky. London sparkled before him. As a young man, he had lived in New York, trading in stocks and shares for one of the biggest American investment banks. That was long before he set up the venture capital fund and started making investments of his own, but he'd never felt at home in the U.S., unlike London. Carsten ran a hand through his hair, wondering what kind of car he should go for when the Russian deal went through. A new sports car, maybe. If he wanted it next spring, he probably needed to order it now. Get in line. He'd never gambled so much on a single investment, but the setup was brilliant, and he'd immediately realized that this was a unique opportunity to make a grotesque amount of money. It was all thanks to Anatoly Goldfarb, his former colleague at the bank in New York. After a few years, Anatoly had been lured back to Moscow by a newly funded Russian investment bank offering huge bonuses, but he and Carsten had kept in touch. It had been well worthwhile. Carsten shook his glass, clinking the ice cubes. Russia was volatile. He wasn't unaware of the risks involved in doing business with the former Soviet state, the need to grease the palms of key individuals and pay out significant sums in commission. However, With Anatoly by his side, there was no danger. Carsten would never trust his old friend completely, but he did trust his desire to make a profit.